Working in a messy workshop can really impede your workflow, not to mention the fact that it's bad for your lungs, so I'm sure you'll have considered getting a shop vac or a dust collector at some stage. Today, I thought I'd do a review of my Lumberjack BDE1100 dust collector. I've had this one for a couple of years now, so hopefully I can give you a full overview of the good and the bad elements of this machine and hopefully help you to make an informed decision about whether this is the machine for you. This stuff will come in useful later on. I've made a couple of small customizations to mine over the years and I'll show you these throughout the review, so hopefully you'll find the tips useful. Let's check it out. When I bought this, it was one of, if not the lowest priced dust extractor of its kind that I could find on the market. And I'd had some experience with Lumberjack tools previously and had been pleased with their customer service. So I went for it and bought this one. Ultimately, I really wanted something more substantial than just a simple shop vac, as I wanted to connect it up to my various tools and machines. The extractor itself is pretty straightforward. It consists of this main bin, this clip thingy, the motor, dust bag, hose and reducer nozzles. The power switch is easy to access on the front of the machine, and one thing I really like about this type of machine is that regardless of which way round you need the hose, such as putting it sideways to go onto my table saw, you can just rotate the motor and have the switch easily to hand, which is one of the positives of this kind of machine versus something more rectangular that would only sit in one position. It's got an 1100 watt motor and they do have a slightly more powerful 1200 watt version, which I toyed with buying at the time, but frankly I wasn't sure if the slight upgrade in power would make that big a difference for my use. This one is also stated as being a bit quieter on the spec, which I thought was more important in my garage workshop. It claims to be roughly 77 decibels on the spec sheet, so I thought I'd download an app and try it out. This app was free and used on my phone, so it isn't exactly scientific, but the reading speaks for itself. It comes with a 2 meter long 100mm hose, which is what I wanted so that I could connect it up to larger equipment such as my Titan planer thicknesser, but also connect it to my various other workshop machinery such as the table saw, bandsaw, spindle sander and miter saw, as well as various handheld power tools like the random orbit sander, biscuit jointer, router, that kind of thing. The main issue you'll find if you intend to use it as an all-rounder rather than just for the larger machines is that you'll need to either buy some adapters that unfortunately Lumberjack don't do direct, or you'll need to fashion your own like I have using good old duct tape. That being said, it does fit directly onto most of my tools without any customization. The problem with most power tools is that they never seem to have a standard port, which makes getting a one-size-fits-all effect with any tool pretty much impossible. Emptying the bin and changing the filter bags is really easy. You just unclip this ring and the top lifts straight off. To replace the filter bag, you just slot it over the top. To empty the bin, I just remove the motor and the hose and carry the whole thing to the bin and tip it in. Nice and easy. And because it has a large 50 litre capacity, I find that I'm not constantly having to empty it all the time. The only real exception is when I hook it up to my planer thicknesser, as that throws out a lot of chips that it soon fills up. But even then, I can still get through all of my jobs before needing to empty it. And I guess it's not really designed for this, as it should be using a chip extractor for this. The only problem really is that you can't see when it needs emptying, so you just have to check it every so often. But as the capacity is so big, you don't have to do it that regularly. As for the filter bags, I've got no idea when I should actually change them, and for the longest time I didn't have any spare ones. So I used to just give it a good few taps every so often to get a load of the dust off it and then put it back on. Then every so often you'll just want to replace the bags when you feel it needs it, but it's very much just a case of guessing. One thing I really like is that the power cord is nice and long. At 2 meters, it gives me plenty of flexibility when moving it to my various tools, and as it stands, I've never had the need to unplug it and plug it in elsewhere in my small workshop. I use this as often as I can on my tools, and in general it works great. I think most issues when it comes to dust collection are more around the tools themselves rather than the dust extractors generally, such as on my miter saw, as it just throws out dust off the back rather than all up through the dust port as it should do. Because this isn't a traditional shop vac, it doesn't come with all the usual vacuum attachments, but the only real problem I found is that because it only has a 2 meter hose, it only really attaches properly to my table saw and planer thicknesser without an extra hose, as often a thinner or more flexible hose allows for a wider variety of uses. I imagine a lot of people buying this type of machine will be like me and wanting more of a one-stop shop. Fortunately, I had a spare dust hose that I got with my table saw, and I've had this connected up to my my extractor, which makes it infinitely more usable for around the workshop and connecting to my tools that move, like my track saw and random orbit sander. I'm definitely stretching the scope for its intended use, but I do think having this extended hose attached really helps provide much wider use possibilities for it. The only other customization that I needed to make was to the hose intake hole. It's designed with a plastic crosspiece, which I imagine is designed to help separate debris as it's sucked up. But unfortunately, I found that this was clogging the hose, particularly when I was running it on my planer thicknesser. But needs must, so I made the decision to just snap them out of there. Doing something like this would likely void your warranty though, so I can't recommend you do this on your own, but it has worked really well for me. Overall, I've been really happy with the Lumberjack BDE1100, and I'd have no problem recommending it to a friend, so I'll put a link in the description for you to check it out if you want. If you've got a spare hose or can get yourself one, then you won't regret it, as it will massively help you to increase the usage capability of the tool. And I'd also recommend picking up a few bags to go with it as well. If you found this video useful, please be sure to subscribe, as I regularly post tool reviews, woodworking tips and project videos. And as a suggestion, you should try this video next. See you next time.